folks, welcome, and I will call this November 5th, 2025 meeting of the Shawnee Planning Commission to order. Roll call, please.
All right. Alexander.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Barrett.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Hayes. Here. And Reese.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Item number 1, consideration and approval of the minutes from the October 1, 2025 regular meeting. Do I have any additions, subtractions, changes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
And second. Roll call, please.
All right. Alexander.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
Reese.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Item number 2, consideration of the 2026 Planning Commission regular meeting schedule for approval or possible action.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
All right. Alexander.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Barrett.
Aye.
Reese.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
And Hayes.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Item number 3, public hearing and consideration of a request for a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental at the property addressed as 3520 North Market Avenue, case number CUP 03-25, applicant Mary Wisdom.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. As stated, this is a request for a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental at the property addressed as 3520 North Market Avenue. So this property is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of North Beard and West 36th. It's currently zoned R1 for low-density residential and has similar zoning to all directions surrounding it, north, south, east, and west. The owner is requesting a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental. So this is not an existing short-term rental that is coming into compliance. This is seeking for approval to begin. So, as a reminder, a conditional use permit authorizes the owner or agent to use a piece of property in such a way that is not allowed by right in a certain zoning district. Rather, it is an avenue by which certain land uses are allowed, provided the owner meets certain criteria. So in the R1 zoning district, a short-term rental is allowed with a conditional use permit. The comprehensive plan future land use map indicates a low-density residential land use, and the current zoning district is meant to accommodate those types of uses. And let's see. Property has zoning. Okay. The owner, as stated, is Mary Wisdom, and she's designated a property manager who lives in town to be present when she cannot. And we have that person's contact information as well, should any sort of complaint or emergency arise. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you. At this time, I will open the floor to the public hearing. Whenever, if you'd like to speak for or against, I will try to keep it as even as possible. If you would, please come forward and write down your name and contact information real quick, and we will proceed. So I will declare this portion of the public hearing open. Anyone like to come forward? You're the winner. Come on up. That's why we're here.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm the owner,
Okay.
Mary Wisdom, so I figure, yes, I should come forward and
ask that it be approved and move forward. And I have my property manager with me as well.
Okay?
So I don't know, you want me to sign in here?
Sure.
Okay. This is our first experience doing this, so we're a little bit uncomfortable and unsure what's happening. So we just want to say, yes, we hope it goes through and then goes to the next step, which I think is another more open forum in the evening time.
Right, the full city commission.
Yeah. And we've been delayed a month or so because of inaccurate or the wrong paperwork was sent out to the public, so. But that's all I have to say. I just hope it gets approved, and thank you very much.
Any questions?
I do have a question. You said this was your first short-term rental?
Yes,
Okay.
first experience, yes. Well, here in Oklahoma, yes.
Okay.
I've had a short-term rental in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Oh, very
Yeah.
active market there.
Yeah, I've been through this since 2016 there, but not here. We didn't have to do this. This is new. This is a new process.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Would
you.
anyone else like to speak on this issue? In that case, I will close the public hearing. Oh, okay, Steve. All right, at this time, I will close the public hearing, and if there's no further discussion, I will call for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the CUP to operate short-term rental.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Alexander,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Barrett,
Aye.
Reese,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, public hearing and consideration of a request for a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental at the property addressed as 17308 Magnino Road, case number CUP 04-25, applicant Will Jones.
All right, thank you for that introduction. As stated, this is another request for a conditional use permit. Similar to the previous request, it is a conditional use permit to operate a short-term rental. However, this is a case where the property owner has been operating a short-term rental, and as we are continuing to guide any current operations back into compliance with city code, they're requesting a conditional use permit. So this address, 17308 Magnino Road, is located in the Twin Lakes area, just on the south side of Lake Number 2. And so it is correspondingly zoned TL for Twin Lakes. This property, like most others in the Twin Lakes area, is a lease from the city, which just means that they lease the right to own the building and the home, so they don't technically own the parcel itself. Let's see. Similar to the previous item, a short-term rental is allowed in this zoning district with a conditional use permit. And the applicant has provided for your review a copy of the house rules that they will have with this rental. Are there any questions for staff?
Thank you very much. At this time, I will open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak about this particular item, please come forward. If you would, please just put down your name and contact information real quick and tell us who you are and what you'd like to say.
So we're Scott and Nan Shaded. We live 2 doors down. We live at 17316 Magnino Road. So this property is very close to our property. So my husband here, Scott, has a couple of things written down. He wants to just ask some questions.
Yeah, we're not too familiar with, this would be like an Airbnb type situation, and I would think that anybody who lives within a couple houses of it would probably ask the same questions if we were to open up one. And some of the things we wanted to know, because we're not that familiar with it, I know there's like 4 or 5 Airbnbs in the Shawnee Twin Lakes area right now. They kind of require you to have houses and not mobile homes, which is good. And this isn't a mobile home or anything like that, but there are some rules and stuff. And some of the things we want to know is how often this is going to be rented, what type of security is going to happen, because we live 2 blocks down. We have grandkids that come over all the time. Is there a limit to the number of people? And we don't have the rules that you have on this. What is there, if there's a problem, who do we call? How many years this is going to go on? Is it going to be just for a year? Is it going to be for 20 years? And of course, the regulations of the Airbnb. And these are some questions we just want to know because we live there permanently and we're 2 houses away from this place.
And being on the lake, people come out and there's an Airbnb a little bit further down the road. But we have noticed on the weekends, especially holiday weekends, people come out, they're not really familiar with boating rules, and it gets a little bit scary out on the lake. And so when our grandkids come out, especially when we notice that, we try and keep them wrangled in close to home. So we're just worried about the safety. So thank you.
And I know that they just recently bought the place, probably within the last 6 months. So, and we're aware of that. We knew who was there before. And so
Yeah.
that's just our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Brett Van Lettingham. I'm here on behalf of Will and his wife, Christina. Kristen, they are in South Carolina, and they asked me to be able to come and attend. Some of the concerns there, this, I don't, in your letter, I don't know what it says, but Will is a superintendent out here at Dale Public Schools. His wife is a principal over at Bethel Public Schools, and they purchased this property. I kind of helped them with that process to be able to get to there. When they purchase the property, their intentions are they want to retire there. This is what their ultimate goal is. But during that period of time, obviously they're both not to a retirement age, and so they would like for it to be able to have an opportunity to be able to do that, to be able to be an Airbnb during that period of time. And they are very open to whatever, rules and guidelines that you all want to set out. They're very open to that, whatever that may be. So as for some of the concerns that, they had, I'm sure that once the people can maybe meet Will and his wife, they can help with some of those concerns that they have as well. So.
It'd probably be more appropriate for you to answer their questions, since we're not really a question and answer body here.
I'll be glad to, I'll visit with them whenever we get done and try to maybe help them maybe understand what their goals are and kind of then maybe make a connection to where that communication line can get open between the two. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? In that case, I will close this portion of the public hearing. And if there are no more comments or questions, I will ask for a motion, please.
Can I ask one question? Not of them, but one thing that came up in one of the other ones that we were talking about, and just as I think this is something that needs to be talked about at the commission too, specifically out at Twin Lakes. And I can see why somebody would want to do this out there. I think it's a good thing that people want to be able to rent their properties. It does bring people in. It does bring people in who will shop here and things like that. But one of the questions that came up was the response time, if there are issues of the city police department. Because there's my understanding is the only real.
Let's go ahead and let's make a motion, and we'll have that. Let's do that as part of the motion discussion, please.
Okay.
So I will call for a motion, please.
Make a motion to recommend approval of the Airbnb application.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
All right. Alexander?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have discussion.
We have a motion. Actually,
I would be willing to discuss, it during commissioners' comments.
Okay.
I can do it then.
That's perfect. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so we are back to roll call.
All right. Alexander?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Barrett?
Aye.
Reese?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hayes? Aye. All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Item number 5, public hearing and consideration of a request to rezone the property address as 306 East 45th Street from C2, which is regional commercial, to R3 high-density residential. Case number RZ04-25, applicant Dean Colida.
Thank you. As stated, this is a request to rezone a property from C2, regional commercial, to R3, which is high-density residential. This property is currently addressed as 306 East 45th Street. However, you might recognize it as last year, approximately this time, this parcel did come through as a plat. Now, the plat itself was approved by City Commission but has not yet been filed, which is why it is still addressed as a singular piece of property instead of a whole subdivision. So currently it is zoned C2, and to the north is R1 zoning. To the north is R1 zoning, and is the site of a residential subdivision. To the northwest is R3 zoning. Directly to the west is C2 zoning. And then to the southeast is some TA zoning, which is transitional agriculture. So the applicant is wanting to rezone a section of the area that was platted last year, so it's not the whole subdivision, just a part of it. So the original intent was that there are 8 total lots in that plat, plus a common area, and the lots 1 through 7 were always intended to be sort of a commercial area, and that last lot, lot number 8, is the one that they are wanting to rezone to R3. And I believe the current intent for that R3 zoning is to eventually build duplexes there. Now, the comprehensive plan future land use map was developed with the most recent comprehensive plan that was done in 2019 and is used to project and predict desired uses in a certain area. And the future land use map does indicate this area as high-density residential. The land use designation is meant to hold a diversity of housing types and even potentially some small-scale commercial, and is usually used as a buffer between commercial zones and commercial areas and some of the lower density residential areas. Now, traditionally, zoning from a higher intensity district like this, C2, to a lower intensity, which the request is to go to R3. Traditionally, this isn't normally advised. However, staff would also ask the Planning Commission to consider the surrounding area with the proximity to both the current zoning C2 and to the requested zoning R3, as well as the current scarcity of multifamily housing options within the city, and the future land use maps prediction and recommendation. So with those 3 factors in mind, staff would recommend approval of this rezoning request. Now, are there any questions for staff?
The zoning would allow for even higher density than duplexes, correct?
Yes.
To 4plexes?
Yeah. R3 allows for duplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes, and I believe a few other similar variations. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I will open the floor to the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak for or against this issue, please come forward and write your name down, tell us who you are and what you'd like to say.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Langford, and this is in my backyard. And I am concerned with the possibility of lowering the value of my home, along with the other homes that are already built there. I'm also concerned with privacy fences up. How tall can this building be? Is it going to be multi-level? If it is, then everyone in the upstairs is going to see right into our backyard. The biggest concern is the lowering of my home value. It was my understanding that there could have been some retail in this space at one time from the property owners that had purchased this. And I'm just concerned with the values of the properties lowering and the privacy that we have with our fences up. So that's my main concerns for you not to approve this. So.
I have a question. In the covenants for your addition, are there no two-story houses allowed?
No,
Only single-story?
only single story, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, would anyone else like to speak for or against this item? Sir.
Good afternoon, Dean Colita, representing the development group for this project. We have, obviously this is commercial, and going back to and I'll address her comments here in a second from an overall perspective. This, obviously the comp plan shows this is projected to be, high-density residential. We're the location next to the middle school, Gordon Cooper Technology Center, OBU 2 miles away. The housing shortage in the area for that type of affordable product, I think it makes a lot of sense for this area. And the fact that the comp plan does project that and actually wants guides the zoning to be that in this area, I think is important. Also, there's a different type of housing product out there that's maybe not next door and down the street. I know there's multi-family complexes, actually apartment complexes just to the west. And then you have single family adjacent to us, and there's some other higher density uses that are in the surrounding area. So this is kind of an intermediate use, if the duplex or this type of high density. And the way that, so the use I think applies to this area, and the way that this tract is shaped, it's basically the majority of the property is behind the frontage on 45th. So from a retail or commercial standpoint, that's not going to probably be the best use for that because it's sitting further back. Usually retailers and commercial want frontage. So we have a small frontage, but then the majority of the property is kind of set back. So for this shape, it's like an L-shaped tract there. This is kind of a leftover from when they did the original plat, because all the other tracts are basically fronting onto 45 and at the corner there at Union. So with that, the use seems it would fit better to have something that's more rentable or usable than the commercial use there, just for the fact you may not be able to get tenants that are sitting that far back from the road. So that's one big concern. and that's the reason why, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to change the request to residential. And then you look at it from a buffering standpoint, and she mentioned privacy, if her tract is now, there could be commercial directly behind her, which, you have a lot more traffic, you have, a lot of activity, you have dumpsters that are, you have all these things that are in a commercial area, that this would help buffer from low-density residential to high-density residential to commercial, which is basically exactly what is stated in the comp plan of what they want for this type of area. It's an interstate corridor, and it's also, in the interstate corridor designation, they did state that, they want not just, commercial and industrial, they want a residential type of product, and it specifically states in there that they want the buffering from low to high density. So it meets all the guidance that the comp plan has, and it makes sense from a, basic common sense standpoint of not being able to even rent that out. I mean, you could say it's commercial all day, but you're going to get a tenant to go back there. So then it's just going to stay vacant. So the use seems to fit, and then, from the property value standpoint, anytime you're going to develop something, my opinion, the property values are going to go up. This is not going to be, some low rent, where there's obviously some things you could cost and things like that that are not good for property values, but I don't think this is the case. It just gives another property and another type of product that people can use that is more affordable in the area. And some people call it attached multifamily. Duplex is a term as well, but you still have your own unit. It's not an apartment complex, so you're not going to have that sense of density. And the 4.6 acre tract, you can only fit so many units on that, and that limits the use and the shape of the tract. So you're not going to be able to put apartment complexes in, which is not exactly what we're asking for anyway. So with that being said, I think the fencing up, I think per their plat, they're going to have their own fencing. And our units has a buffer from the back based off of the zoning code. So we have to have, distance from the back lot line as well. So I think all that is, from the zoning standpoint of R3, I think it all gets addressed in that. So I think, I respect the concerns, but, the value of bringing in different type of housing products and the location it's in, shape of the tract, and it's been told by the comprehensive plan that is the type of product and use that's needed in this area, and the housing shortage, which is obviously big, which is everywhere in the U.S., I believe, but especially here, and the locations of the schools, it just makes a lot of sense for this to be, the residential products that we're going for. So, I'd be happy to answer any question you have.
Any questions?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Surprise. Is this going to be housing stock that's going to be available for sale, or is the developer planning to hold it and just lease it?
Hold and lease is the current plan, correct?
Okay. So that really doesn't solve the problem of the housing shortage, because there's really not a shortage of rental property. My focus as a real estate professional is to increase actual housing stock for purchase so that somebody has the ability to improve it and become part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Would it ever be possible for anybody to own one side of the duplex?
I think that's not out of the question. The intent is for the ownership group to own it, but at some point, there may be an exit strategy to sell each unit separately or groups of, so it's not out of the question. It's, you just have to sell it as like a condo regime because we're not platting it. Typically when we do duplex developments, we're actually platting each side as a separate lot, fee simple. So that would have to go through a different process, but you could sell it as a condo regime where it's, the HOA owns the, the whole common area.
Or
selling.
Yeah, or a townhouse.
Yeah, townhouse, yeah. So it could be done that way. It just wouldn't be like a fee simple lot. It would be like if you're buying a single family house, but you could sell it in that regard.
But their intent is to hold it and lease
The
it.
intent is to hold the product, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Which is good because then, we're in for the long haul. We want it to stay nice and look nice, so.
Any other questions?
I have not a question, but I want to have a conversation before we make a motion.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I will, if there is anyone that would like to speak for or against this, anyone else? Come on up.
Good afternoon, my name is Dan Bandy. My wife got me up, so I have to speak. I have questions about this. It's a surprise to the neighborhood that when we got the notice that they're going to do this. Now, there's 15 houses in there right now, all in the $350,000 range. They're in process of building one right now. When I bought there, I was told there would be 40 houses in the whole development. Now, you're going to put, as the young lady said, in her backyard, it's in my front yard, because I'm across the street from it. You're going to put in apartments in there, because that's what he said, and they're going to hold on to them. And that really, it made it, just made a real comfortable feeling to me, because I drive around and look at these apartments that everything's blowing off of and nobody's taking care of. But of course, this group is going to take care of theirs. But I'm curious what they're going to put in there so my property value doesn't go to the toilet. I've invested $350,000 as the other people have in that neighborhood, and you're going to put apartments back there and rent them. That doesn't give me comfort. I bought in Shawnee because I thought it was a good town. I came in from Indianapolis and wasn't expecting to see an apartment across the street from me when I bought in this neighborhood. And I don't know how any of you would feel having apartments put in the back of your house. And I don't know what you paid for them, but you probably wouldn't like the house, apartments in your backyard. I don't like the prospect of that. But I'd like to know what they're going to put in there. He's not sure what they're going to put in there right now. I want to know if it's going to match my value so my value doesn't drop. Or are we not worried about the normal citizen here? We're just worried about the big guy. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Could I address?
And folks, the minimum of contact information is fine on there. Just your address and number is perfectly fine. Yes, sir.
So, Dane Colita. We are not doing apartments, so this perfectly. So this is our conceptual plan. You can see the L-shaped lot. This is lot 8 of the subdivision, and then there's commercial lots, basically all the way to Union there, 45th is here. So essentially, different types of duplex units, but that's the style we're going for, we're going to try to do. That's the kind of cottage style, which I believe, if you look at the units to the east, which I think this still lives, it's pretty similar in style. So this is the concept plan that we're going for this. And as you can see, you can't put apartments. I mean, there's not enough room to do. So it is a duplex development that we're shooting to do.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
If I get some clarification. We have R2 as well, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing that, why wouldn't we just do it to R2 then?
Because the units per acre is increased above what R2 is.
But if we go to R3, that means you could build apartments there.
Apartments, or I don't think you can do apartment, you can do triplex or quad, not apartment complexes. Unit count, you would exceed that for high density.
But you could, I guess, I can't really address you, but I guess I can address the rest of the commission, and this goes back to what part of my concern is. Is that in R3, there's a lot of area out there that could be rezoned over and over again. And the distinction here for me is that an R2 allows for something that limits some of the concerns about height. I think it also limits some of the concerns about once you get to something that's more dense than what an R2 would allow. You also require more parking space and more impervious area. So now we've got a water issue. How do we handle runoff, stormwater runoff that's going to flow into potentially somebody else's backyard? There's a lot of other issues that arise. So when I think about these things, it's not about what the development's going to be, because I think people need to be able to develop their land. It is about adjacent property. And so when we think about R3, for me, that's a much higher potential for a much higher density of units than an R2. And it seems to me that what they're asking for would fit into an R2. Now, I don't know enough about the number of lots or what it would be, but that's where my concern about something like this comes in.
So a little clarification too, I think on a R2 or duplex can also be an up-down duplex. So it doesn't mean that they can't build a second
They
story.
could go 2 stories though, but they couldn't go 3 stories or 4 stories or.
Yeah, let's have this discussion some other time than public hearing. So anything else, sir?
Just let you know about the subdivision that was designed, that was approved for the plat. There's a regional detention pond that all the water goes to. So all the infrastructure for that, the lots has been taken care of, water, sewer, and detention for runoff. And we're directing everything to the pond. So the neighbors will receive no runoff, beyond what they already do. So just for that.
I think.
Yep, thank you.
Did we see the picture?
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing for item number 5. If there's no more questions or comments, I will call for a motion.
I would like to have some clarification on my concern. I hear about this number of units and what can go in and what the property looks like, but to me, it seems like an R2 would be a much more reasonable.
Let's have that under motion discussion.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I can answer back to that. If we get a motion to approve as it is, maybe I want to make a motion to approve as an R2.
Okay.
So I'd like to have this discussion prior to that. We're under, and I think part of the reason why is we're under new zoning regulations. These are coming up now. These are new to us to see. So I think part of it is we as a group need to feel out what these look like. When we get something like an R3 as opposed to an R2, why does it need to be an R3 if the developer wants to do this? Part of my concern is if we open up the entire pie, to development, when we could maybe open up a smaller piece of it, that's what my concern is I need to understand what the difference is between an R2 and why an R2 wouldn't fit what they're saying they want to do. But
Housing count, it's unit count per acre.
and that's all it is.
Is that correct?
She can address it.
Okay, so, let's see. Okay, so in the R3 zoning district, the maximum density is 40 units per acre. In R2, that maximum is, let's see. Okay, let's see. Okay, that's not specified for R2.
On an R3, does it specify how units are arranged as well, and also common space like lawns and things like that?
So those types of things are dependent on the specific use and not necessarily the zoning district itself.
Okay.
So, let's see, for R2, let's see, the minimum lot area is 5,000 square feet, and the amount of lot that is allowed to be covered is only 45%. And the building height maximum is 40 feet. Where if we compare that directly to R3, the lot coverage maximum is 70%, and the building height maximum is 50 feet. Let's see.
Pretty much R3, just directly to answer your question, R3 can allow for more higher density than what is we see in the picture. And it's not guaranteed that what we see in the picture today will happen in the future. And once we allow certain zoning, we cannot control exactly what will be developed on the land. We need to go by the city codes, which they regulate the setbacks, lot coverage, stuff like that, but we cannot tell the property owner what exactly we would like to see developed on the land.
But an R2, though, has sets some limits about both height and the number of units that can go on the property.
Yes, the zoning districts
Supposed to
apply
be
to what we
Yes.
call the bulk standards, which is the height, width, size of the building itself, and restricts uses to a certain group.
Also in the use table of the codes, duplex, triplex, quadruplexes are allowed on either R2 or R3.
Yeah.
So, but if we want to extend above that, R3 allows for higher buildings, more density, a little bit higher coverage on the lot. And those are the main differences between these two zoning areas.
Thank you. Thanks for your
No worries. Okay, any other questions?
Yes, sorry. Would a plan unit development be a solution that would be kind of a hybrid between the two?
They can do plan unit development unless, but
It's possible, but not strictly necessary.
yes, I was looking for that word. It doesn't going to offer super more benefits than if they go to R2, let's say that.
It's my understanding that planned unit development is where things don't fit
Right.
in any
Yes.
other use.
Yes.
And
Yes.
So what I'm thinking of in terms of a plan unit development, maybe for single-family rather than multifamily, so that they can have more coverage on the lots.
The purpose of a planned unit development is, it functions as a zoning overlay
Right.
to enforce more strict regulations on the area or to allow for specific uses in conjunction with the base zoning itself. So this property, it's not, it is an option, but there are other options that are less complicated than a planned unit development, because once you start with that planned unit development process, there are a lot of requirements that you need to meet.
Yeah, I don't want to make it more complicated than it already is.
Just to clarify, I have opened the table use here, and for R3, duplex, triplex, and fourplex are allowed. In R3, duplex, triplex, fourplex, courtyard, bungalow court, multiplex are allowed. So there is a little bit more uses in R3 than R2.
And what's about an R2? Was the R2 the first thing you mentioned?
Yes.
two to fours.
So for duplexes specifically, duplexes are allowed in all three residential zoning districts, R1, R2, R3. R3 has the largest variety of residential housing types.
Yes.
Okay,
Can I mention one thing?
Mr. Kalita, I'm sorry. Let's get this train back on the tracks. Let's call for, whether it be a modified motion or a motion to approve, let's make a motion.
I make a motion to recommend approval of RZ0425 as is currently.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We shall vote on the motion to approve as is. Alexander?
Aye.
Porter?
Oh,
Barrett?
Aye.
Reese?
Nay.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hayes?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes 4-2.
Thank you very much. Item number 6, Community Development Department updates.
Dear Commissioners, good afternoon. I just have a very short update. There is a housing accelerator workshop conducting, I believe it's next Thursday, November 13, for the entire day. I think it starts 9:30 to about 2:30 to 3 in the afternoon, which is conducted in
I'm sorry, Patrick. Steve, could I ask you to conduct your conversation outside?
It is conducted in conjunctions between the University of Oklahoma School of Architecture and American Planning Association Oklahoma chapter, and different group involving in housing developing are invited, like developers, insurance companies, legislators, nonprofits, local governments, to discuss what are the barriers for constructing and offering more attainable housing. So I would like to extend that invitation to you. I can send you online the flyer. I missed to print it out for you to give it out. It's free of charge. Lunch is provided. And it will be just, as I mentioned, workshop discussion. What are the barriers and how we can cross over those barriers to just open the way for more attainable housing in Oklahoma, because we have issue and we'll all recognize that. So that's all for me. Questions?
When is it?
November 13th.
13th.
I believe it's next Thursday.
Yes.
But once we finish this meeting, I will, and once I go back to my office, I'll send you the electronic flyer, because reservation is due November 7th. So they require a reservation because they need to know how much food to order. Any questions for me?
So what's the food?
I don't know about that. I hope it's good food.
I'm sure it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Big slick chicken.
Okay.
If I may.
Yes.
This is less of an update and more of a word of caution. As far as public record, recently there have been some scams going around with emails being sent out that are posing as city staff, asking for invoices to be paid or wire transfer money to be sent. I don't believe any of the planning commissioners have received any of those kinds of notifications, but I know several applicants have received some. The working theory is that when the agenda packets are published, they are publicly available, public record, and these scammers are feeding that contact information and staff reports into some sort of AI generator to impersonate staff to ask for invoices to be paid and things of that nature. So I just wanted to make it public record and note of it during a public meeting that whenever staff asks for payment on an application, they will always be directed to call the permitting office and never through a wire transfer.
So they're fishing expeditions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, item number 7, commissioners' comments. Come on, Marty.
Nothing from
I have two now, that's what I'd like to put out there, and I think these get passed up, and I think that's one of the reasons I want to make them, is, so let's address this one first. I do think, I am sensitive to what they were saying, not so much on property values I'm sensitive about, but I'm also sensitive about what the effect might be on your land, the physical effect. And part of our new zoning code, which was fantastic, I like the way we redid it. I like the fact that it gives more options. And I also like the fact that we're trying to create affordable housing in this community, because we're, like most medium-sized communities, we're lacking. But I go back to my issue here of, and my no vote wasn't so much about wanting to them not to be able to develop their property, it's about why, a thought about what the effect is on the adjacent properties between an R3 and an R2 versus an R1, to me is stark. And I don't know if there's some way, and I know you guys don't have this authority now, but some way that we can develop a process of leading people through it's easy. I think the Landys are pretty stand-up people, but this isn't about just them. This is about the way we do business as a community. If they're doing an R3 and they bring in this nice big sign that says it's going to look like this, that means absolutely nothing to me. I lived out in the Timbers when they decided to build on the southeast side, and they said all the homes are going to look like this, and they wound up being about 1,200 square feet, and everything was rentals. There were a couple of groups that bought up probably 50% of them. So that means absolutely nothing. And so we as a city, I think, have to be conscientious about what we allow in certain areas that's going to have an effect on adjacent properties. And this, to me, seems like a problem area in our zoning rules now. Being able to set an R3 right next to an R1. Especially when you've already had people say that they didn't necessarily want that in their area. And it's not as simple to make that connection between a commercial, which is easier to do, I think, for me, and saying, well, no, I don't know if that's really a viable use here or not. But when we go to an R3, which can be units that are much like the ones that are down the street, and that is a big difference from what he was showing there. So I don't know how we overcome that as a city, but I think as a medium-sized community, we need to think about those things. Because those two couples were exactly right. They bought that under a certain impression. Now that impression is not there anymore. And they're looked at it, that's just your problem at this point in time. The second thing is, going back to the issue with the CUPs, is we came up the last time, I'm going to keep saying it until we figure something out here, is the only thing as a city that we have, if the police get one thing, if the police get called out there for people trespassing, for people doing this, it has nothing to do with that particular individual's CUP until the next year when it comes up for renewal. And in the meantime, people who live next door can continue to face just craziness without any real consequence on the owner. And to me, that's not right. We need to have some way of, there needs to be something developed on both sides of it too. I mean, you also don't want the next door neighbor consistently causing problems for the CUP as well. We're opening ourselves up to, in that area out there, I think, to some issues that could be easily solved by, one, figuring out how our response time works out there, and two, figuring out ways to deal with these permits if there's consistent violations. And I know anywhere I travel, I rent Airbnbs. That's just what we do. Even if I'm going to a meeting, I typically get an Airbnb somewhere. And the closer you are to a body of water or something that's recreational, the higher probability, you can almost chart it out, becomes logarithmic at some point in time, that you're going to have partying and craziness in these places. So if I'm living next door to that, I want some control on that. So I think that the city needs to begin thinking through that process of how we deal with that. Because again, we're now putting a neighbor at risk who's invested in a property where there's nothing that controls except for a year-long worth, and even at that point in time, we could still reissue the CUP. And they're left without any kind of recourse to deal with that issue. So that's the two things I want to talk about. I know we can't solve those problems, but somebody needs to begin trying to solve them.
Can I mention something?
Absolutely.
So I understand those are valuable concerns about nuisance and rule violations. And I can assure you, before the city developed this process of short-term rentals, people are using it just as a Airbnb only.
Yeah, right.
And until we have these short-term rental regulations, nothing we can do as a city to prevent that practice. Because we don't have the legal right to tell people whom they can invite in their own property or not. So we hear this concern multiple times from different groups. And to this point, short-term rentals is the only tool that the city legally can operate under to have some type of control. Unfortunately, again, even though people promise they abide by the laws, they don't. If the police response was different before short-term rentals was allowed in lakes properties, it was the same. So I cannot tell you how many minutes do they need to respond, but at least now we have a process where these complaints can be recorded. And as it was mentioned here, if that goes up to some point, maybe the city is not going to renew the license next year, or the city have the right to revoke the license at any point. So this is the only controlling option that the city has, how people can invite guests in their homes. And I agree with the statement, the closest to the water you are, the more crazier stuff you can observe. But again, those are private properties, and this is as much regulation at this point that the city can impose. This is.
Can you clarify the repercussions of them? Like, say you do take away their permit and they keep doing it, what are the repercussions to the owner for doing that from the city?
Once we revoke the permit, they're not legally allowed to operate as a guest house. And there's other legal processes that the city can impose if they continue to be in violation.
Right, at that point, we would involve code enforcement, and they would receive citations,
Yeah.
and things of that nature.
Is there a threshold of complaints where, as you go through a review, that you would?
We don't have.
Or is it case-by-case basis?
A case-by-case basis. We didn't set a certain cap how many complaints we need to receive. I think it depends on the situation.
Because we didn't want to set a threshold of X amount of complaints so that we could prevent anyone from abusing that system. But that was the intent of the annual renewal. But we as staff can look at additional safeguards.
Yes.
And additional triggers to reevaluate those types of things.
Plus, also, there is a nuisance code into the city ordinances, and this can take an effect also, which, again, police will be involved if this keeps going on a continual basis, and I don't believe people will enjoy going in that direction.
And the same could happen in any neighborhood with any
Absolutely.
neighbors.
Yes, but short-term rentals gives the city opportunity to maintain some type level of control, even though it's not absolute control because those are still private properties. But at least we can regulate certain rules and behaviors.
Without it, you don't have any means to cite them for misconduct or whatever, without the short-term rental license.
Without short-term rental, we cannot prohibit for property owners to rent their houses.
Right. How loud they are, how late they stay up.
Exactly. We can just act upon nuisance or trespassing or other violations, but we cannot prohibit them operating as Airbnb.
Right.
The CUP requires them to disclose to the city that they are operating, and gives the city the opportunity to require any additional what's the word I'm looking for? It gives the city the opportunity to put additional requirements for approval on that property.
And we just said those are the standards of behavior. Of course, one of the property owners submitted house rules, which are very common in this type of businesses. And the city doesn't have the legal right to enforce that house rules, but the city has the right to react over violations that are connected to these short-term rentals.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I would like to speak to the other thing. I'm sensitive to the NIMBYism, however, I don't always lean toward it because every new development, every new housing concept was created in somebody's backyard or somebody's front yard. I disagree with the gentleman who spoke that this is solving a need, because there's really not a need to be met for more rental housing. What's wrong? You're looking aghast.
Yeah. Have you, I mean, you're a real estate professional. The slumlords in this town that rent the garbage that's on the market today?
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking
I'm
about
talking about rental property.
there's not a shortage of housing for rentals. There is a shortage of housing for ownership, and that's where you see values appreciate more. And without more attainable housing for people to own, and we've seen this in numerous reports, local, state, and national, all over the country, that without enough attainable housing being developed in communities, prices rise faster. And so just creating more rental units doesn't have an effect on that.
Not on the housing crisis, for sure.
Right. If this was about home ownership, I could have been all behind it. But when it became an investment vehicle for someone, I was less interested. Thank you.
Somebody else? Well, I have plenty to say, but I won't. So, but I remind everyone that these regulations that we're talking about here with the short-term rental, that's exactly what we asked for. That's what we as a planning commission were asking for. The city, it was the Wild West before. There's no actual, to regulate something, you have to codify it. And so here we are. We're there. I noticed that the antis on the against, on the conditional use permits were not out as history shows, but I think we're moving in the right direction. This is how cities are run. And as far as the density goes, remember how frustrated we get when we have applications that are incorrectly, it's the incorrect zoning. Remember how frustrating that is when there's like this runaround between the city and the back and forth. And it's like, well, so somebody actually complies to the letter, and we've got something to say. So I highly support that whole structure of zoning as buffers between different classifications. That's what they're for. And no offense to the real estate professionals, but I categorically deny and reject that property values go down with what you build next door. Unless it's a lead acid battery reclamation facility or a biomedical waste incineration factory.
And I'm not the one who said that properties would go down.
But
if I can respond to that.
But that's the brand new structures in this town that has a legion of aging and decrepit buildings and houses.
Completely agree.
Anything built new is a move in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. That's why I'm on this commission, that's why I volunteer for the city. I want this city to grow. That NIMBY attitude is not helpful. It's just not. And I reject that, barring the lead acid battery reclamation facility, property values don't go down. The only reason they go down is because of financial downturns. Then this city has experienced a growth in property values, the likes of which I've never seen in my lifetime, maybe in the 60s or 70s with that inflation change, but holy smokes.
And probably never see it again.
No, I'll never see it again.
That's nationwide, though.
I mean,
That's not something we did especially here, that's everywhere.
Right.
Well,
Two things. I don't have a problem with CUPs. I completely agree with that. What I'm saying is when we do things, we need to learn to adjust. And if there's things that come up to us that seem like something we need to adjust about, we need to talk about those things. And CUPs are great. I completely agree that before it was the wild, wild west, but that doesn't mean once we solve that we just sit on our laurels. If there's an issue, we need to talk about it. And the second thing is, of all the developers in the world and all the real estate agents in the world, 99% of us that have a concern are landowners and residents, including you. So we are a buffer in some ways to ensure that there's good development strategies that occur in this town. So when we ask those questions, and occasionally they no, then it's about that.
yeah, no, I highly, if everyone were to vote yes on every single thing, I would doubt the utilities organization of this commission. So, no, that is exactly why we're here, no matter how it appears. So, that's why we're here. I'm glad we're doing it.
Thanks for your indulgences.
No, I'm not indulgent. This is why we're here. And again, I'm not trying to be diminutive or dismissive. I'm just trying to run a meeting in the best manner in which I see fit.
So that's appreciated.
Because I have seen these meetings go off the rails. We're nowhere near the right of the way as far as the rails are concerned here. But I just want to, I'm not trying to be the boss of anything. I just want this to go well. And I'll show up next time, I promise.
Thank you.
So, let's vote with our feet. Thank you, friends. You too, Monty.